Hey, good morning. So this is the week of May 11th. Yesterday was Mother's Day, so I hope you were super sweet to your mom and gave her lots of hugs and kisses. Now this week we're doing dress up week. So this week I am dressed up as Mr. Incredible. So if you didn't see the other ones, this is my Mr. Incredible. Look, I've even got some abs there going on. So this is my Mr. Incredible shirt. So if you do not have a costume on, pause the video and go get dressed in one, okay? And I'll see you in just a second. Okay, so hopefully you have your costume on. Now this is Bible for this week, so I'm gonna separate it up into 2 days, possibly 3. We're gonna see how it goes. So let's go ahead and go over your 2 verses. These are your last verses for the whole year of kindergarten. Okay, so your Z verse is right here in purple. And it says, Zion heard and was glad, Psalms 97:8. Hopefully you've been practicing that last week and this week. And then your last big verse is Proverbs 22:6. Now this is the verse that you would have done at graduation for your parents. So hopefully you've been practicing that one also. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6. So don't forget to be practicing that one. One more time. Ready? Together. Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6. Good job. Okay, so we have been reviewing some of the bigger stories that we have learned in Bible all year long. So we ended our last story about where Jesus was crucified. So that's where we're going to start this story at. Okay, so last week we ended right here where Jesus was crucified, and we're going to start right there this week. So I'm going to move the camera down a little bit so that you can see it a little easier. And that's where we're going to start up this week. So this is where Jesus was crucified, and the 2 thieves on the side of him, remember that they were thieves, and one of them said at the end that he wanted Jesus to forgive him. So Jesus told him by the end of that day that he was going to be in heaven with him. So that's where we stopped, where the centurion finally realized that Jesus really was the Son of God, and they didn't realize that until it was too late. So we're gonna start right there. Okay, so put your listening ears on and let's get started. Okay, so remember that Pilate had given a man named Joseph permission, and he and another man, Nicodemus, the same one that Jesus had talked to at night, took the body of Jesus down from the cross to prepare it and for burial. So they took that long piece of white linen cloth and they wrapped it around and around the body. So here is one of the men right here. Here's the body of Jesus where it has the cloth wrapped around and around the body. And then in the folds of the linen, they poured an ointment made of precious spices. And over the face of Jesus, they placed that linen napkin right here. And then they carried the body to a nearby garden and put it in Joseph's new tomb. And the tomb was a burial cave, and it was chiseled out of rock that Joseph had prepared for himself and his family's future burial for when they died. Well, some of the women who had been at the crucifixion, they followed Joseph and Nicodemus to the tomb, and there they saw where the body of Jesus was laid. And they watched as the men rolled a very heavy stone in front of the entrance to the tomb. Now remember, more than one man had to do this. Well, the next day, the religious leaders went to Pilate, and they said, hey, sir, we remember that the deceiver said while he was yet alive that after 3 days I will rise again. So let us set a watch over the tomb so that nobody can steal his body away and say that he has risen from the dead. So Pilate gave them permission to seal the tomb, and then the Roman soldiers were to set guard over the tomb. And very early on Sunday morning, there was a great earthquake in the garden, and an angel rolled the stone away from the tomb. And the soldiers were so afraid that they fainted. So here they are on the ground. They fainted. They don't know what's going on around them anymore. And when the soldiers fainted, Christ arose from the dead, and he bodily came out of the tomb alive. So his body came out of the tomb alive. And the soldiers later woke up and they ran back to tell the religious leaders. Well, the religious leaders bribed them. That means they gave them something to tell a lie. And they told everybody that while they slept, Jesus' disciples came and stole the body away. But of course, only those who didn't want to know the truth would believe that lie, right? For how can someone know what's going on if they're really asleep? So certain people believed it though. And Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome had left their homes while it was yet dark to come to the tomb. And as they walked, the day broke and the sun came up, and it was light as they arrived at the tomb. And they brought precious spices to anoint the dead body of their Lord, kind of like we bring flowers to grave sites now. So they kind of wondered who was going to roll the stone away from them. But when they got to the tomb, they saw that that huge stone was already rolled away. And so Mary Magdalene, she ran back to quickly tell the disciples the sad news that someone had rolled away the stone and stolen the body of Jesus. But the other women, they stayed. And as they looked closely, they saw something that filled them with wonder. Who was sitting on that stone? An angel. And so they saw the angel, and the angel was sitting on that stone door of the tomb. And so they were frightened. But the angel told them, "Fear not, for I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified. He's not here, for he has risen. Come, see the place where the Lord lay, and go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead." So with fear and a lot of joy, the women quickly left, and they ran back toward the city to tell all of Jesus' disciples. Well, meanwhile, Peter and John, remember our story before, they were probably warned by Mary Magdalene that somebody had stolen Jesus' body. So they ran to the tomb. And John, being younger than Peter was, he got there first and he looked into the tomb, but he didn't go in. And then later, Peter came running up, and when he got there, he ran straight into the tomb. So John followed him. What do you think they saw? Do you remember in our other story? They saw the long linen cloth wrapped around and around, but nothing was inside. And the napkin that was on Jesus' face, it was folded neatly and laid to one side. It's like Jesus had gotten right up out of the grave clothes and left the tomb. And the grave clothes were empty. But where was the body? John saw the empty grave clothes and believed that Jesus had indeed risen from the dead. And Peter and John went back to Jerusalem to tell the others what they had seen. And John, filled with faith that Jesus was alive, and Peter, filled with wonder, but not sure that Christ was alive. Well, later, Mary Magdalene came to the garden alone. Remember that she had not seen the angel, and she did not see the grave clothes, but she thought that somebody had stolen Jesus' body. And so she stood there in the garden and she cried, she wept, and she stooped down and she looked into the tomb. What do you think she saw? In the tomb, there were two angels in white sitting there, one at the head and the other at the feet where the body of Jesus had lain. "Woman, why weepest thou? Why are you crying?" they said. "Because they have taken away my Lord," she cried, "and I know not where they have laid him." Well, Mary was a faithful follower of Jesus. He had saved her from a horrible life of sin, and she was so grateful to him, and she loved her Lord so much that she would have tried to drag his stolen body back to the tomb all alone if she could have found his body. So Mary turned and saw someone standing in the garden, and she thought he was the gardener, and he asked her, "Woman, why weepest thou? Whom seekest thou? Who are you looking for?" And Mary, kind of thinking that he was the gardener, said, "Sir, if you have taken away my Lord, please tell me so I can bring his body back." And then he quietly spoke her name, Mary. Mary looked and immediately knew that he was Jesus. "Master," it was Jesus, and he was alive. She probably wanted to fall at his feet to worship him, but Jesus told her, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. For Mary Magdalene, that must have been the happiest day in her whole life. Jesus, her Lord, had died, but now he was alive, and she ran to tell the others that she had seen the risen Christ. Well, on that same Sunday evening, if you remember, 10 of Jesus' apostles were gathered together in the upstairs room. Remember, the doors were closed, the windows were barred, and because remember, the apostles that were afraid that the people who had crucified Jesus would try to kill them too. Well, suddenly, with no warning at all, who stood there? That's right, Jesus did. Jesus stood among them with no warning at all. Now remember, everything was locked up. There's no way he could have gotten in, right? He didn't come through the door. He couldn't come through the window. He just appeared there from out of nowhere. And he told them, peace be unto you. And he showed them his hands and his feet with the nail scars. How glad the apostles were, because now they could see the Lord. He really was alive. He was really Jesus, the one who had been crucified. Do you remember what he asked them? We laughed about it. He asked them, have you any meat to eat? Remember, he wasn't hungry, but he wanted to prove to them that he wasn't just a spirit, right? Because they thought he was a ghost. So they gave him fish and honey, and he ate it. And so that proved to them that he was really there in a real body and not just a spirit. What a wonderful new body it was. It was a resurrection body. Walls and doors could not keep him out. One of the apostles, Thomas, remember, he wasn't there when Jesus appeared in the upper room. And the other apostles told him about it later. But remember, he didn't believe. Remember, he was doubting Thomas. And he said, unless I see the print of the nails in his hands and thrust my fingers into his side, I will not believe, Thomas had said. Remember, a week later, all 11 apostles, including Thomas, were gathered together in the upper room. And suddenly, who came again? That's right, Jesus. And he told them again, peace be unto you. Then he turned to Thomas and he told Thomas, reach out your finger. Behold my hands. Reach out your hand and thrust it into my side. Be not faithless, but believing. And immediately Thomas cried out, my Lord and my God. Thomas didn't need to touch Jesus to know he truly was alive. This was indeed the Christ, the very Son of God, who had died for him and now was alive. And Thomas believed. And Jesus told him, Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. So who was Jesus talking about? Do you remember? Remember that he was talking about all the people who would later be born, like us, who would believe about his death and resurrection, even though we haven't seen him. And Thomas had to see to believe. But Jesus said, blessed are those who will believe without seeing. So today, we don't get to see Jesus like Thomas and the other apostles did. But if we believe when we hear about him, then we are one of those who he was talking about. Remember, for 40 days, Jesus appeared to a lot of different people on earth, and he showed them many infallible proofs that he had risen from the dead. And you can read that in Acts 1:3. And many people saw Jesus alive during those 40 days, and 500 people saw him at one time. And that's in 1 Corinthians 15:6 in the Bible. Well, early one morning, he ate with his disciples on the shore of Galilee, and he took his 11 apostles up the Mount of Olives, and he told them that they were to go everywhere and tell everyone that he had died for their sins and risen again. In Acts 1:8, Jesus says, ye shall be witnesses unto me, both in Jerusalem and in all Judea, and in Samaria, and into the uttermost part of the earth. And when he had said this, remember what happened? His feet left the earth, and his body started going up and up until a cloud covered him, and they could see him no longer. And the apostles stood gazing into the sky, wondering, where did he go? Will he come back? What's happening to him? And then as they looked up, 2 angels appeared, and the angels told them, ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which was taken up from you into heaven, shall come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. That's in Acts 1:11. Remember, Jesus had gone to heaven. He went to that beautiful home where God lives. That's where he is now living. And what is he doing in heaven? Do you remember? We talked about that when we were reviewed. Yeah, he's preparing a place for everyone who believes on him. And the angels gave a promise. The angel said that he's going to come again in the clouds the same way that he went up. And he's going to take us to live in heaven with him forever. Remember, Jesus really lives. He is alive. And because he lives, we can live too forever and ever in heaven. So remember that when you are praying about Jesus and you are saying your prayers to Jesus, that he is there with you. He is listening to you. He is alive, and he is preparing a place for everyone who believes in him in heaven. Okay, that's going to end our Bible story review for today. And Miss Carmen's going to send you one for Wednesday, and then I'm going to read the last one for the week. Okay, so let's go ahead and say our prayer for today. And I want you to bow your heads. Think about those prayer requests. Some of us had prayer requests at our last Zoom meeting. So think about the prayer requests that you have today and say that in your heart, because Jesus knows exactly what's there. Okay, heads bowed, hands together. Dear Lord, we just thank you for the wonderful year in kindergarten that we had. We are sad that it's ending this way, Lord, but we know that you have a purpose in all of this. And I pray that each one of my littles have had time to be with their family at home, that they've grown in their relationship with you, Lord, that they've spent time in their Bibles, that they have listened to what you have to tell them. I pray that they are opening their hearts to you, that they have asked you to come into their hearts to live, Lord. I pray that they believe that you died on the cross for their sins, that you rose again in 3 days, Lord. I pray that they understand those words and that you ascended into heaven and are preparing a place for all of those who believe in you. I pray that if they have any questions, that they'll go to their parents, Lord. They'll go to their teachers. They'll come to me, Miss Carmen, anybody, Lord, and that you will help to show them the way, Lord. Help us to teach them and to be models for you for them, Lord. It's in your precious name that I pray. Amen. Okay, my friends, so the next Bible story will be the last Bible story in kindergarten. I'll see you in just a little bit. I love you.